All right. Good morning, Doug. We're back with a Friday Q&A. Got lots of good questions from our viewers. If you're a viewer and would like to ask questions of Doug, the best way to do it is join our Telegram channel. The link for that is in the description of this video. Every Thursday or so, I ask for questions and submit them there. We get through as many of them as we can here during these conversations. So, Doug, the first question is, what is your outlook for Lebanon?
Well, I haven't been to Lebanon for 6, 7, 8 years. But I don't see how the prognosis can be good for it because there's this thing between the Christians and the Mohammedans, and it's not getting better, and the Mohammedan population is growing. So, you've basically got this religious war, and you've got other groups besides. You've got political groups, and it's in a bad neighborhood with the Palestinians and the Israelis, and God knows what's going to happen. So I like Beirut. It was exotic. I mean, and the bullet holes everywhere add charm. But I think there's probably better places to go.
And they're also experiencing a lot, something like hyperinflation at this point, aren't they? I mean, aren't they having severe um, financial problems or currency problems?
I wouldn't doubt that. I haven't looked at their currency, but of course, every country in the world is going to have those problems.
That's true. Next question is, how could Western Canada separate from the rest of Canada?
Oh, much more easily than any American state could separate from the United States. I mean, the setup there is easier. And Western Canada, Alberta, from that point of view, was always the best candidate, I think. But here's the problem. It's that Canada has really become a homeland of political correctness. I mean, even in Alberta, let me see if I'm getting my facts right. They didn't have a provincial income tax. They put one on. They put on lots of new taxes just in the last 5 or 10 years. So will it separate? Yeah, it should before it's too late. I mean, even the maritime provinces, Newfoundland and such, they should never even have become part of Canada. They only became part of the Federation of Canada or whatever the hell it is after World War II. I mean, they should definitely, but in today's world, if you try to turn yourself into a beacon of freedom or an international tax haven, you'll basically be shut down by other countries, particularly your neighbor to the south. So nice thought. I don't think it's going anywhere for a number of reasons in Canada. It'll be easier, but harder in different ways.
All right. This one is from an 18-year-old named Josh, who says he's a senior in high school and he's planning on spending the next few years traveling and gaining as much experience as possible. Do you have any advice for a young person such as myself trying to build wealth and be as free as possible? Thank you. I'm a big fan.
Okay. It's great to just travel and get the experience. That's really important. But you'll make things easier if you have a plan. I mean, you can just kind of wander around like Kwai Chang Caine did in that series from the 70s, Kung Fu. That's cool. Nothing wrong with that. Great idea. But it's better to have a plan. So what would I do if I was in your position right now? Glad you're not going to college. That's a step in the right direction. So I guess you've got some capital that would have otherwise been employed to go to college. So I don't know how much. It's helpful to have capital. A magic number, I don't know what that is today, quite frankly. But you've got to have at least 5 or 10 grand in your jeans, I think, just to be able to cover contingencies. So what would I do? We were talking the other day about this one group that teaches you the construction trades in
Shelter.
yeah, building a house. before you go off on your adventure, it might be good to do that. And there are a number of places, starting with the Cordon Bleu in France and similar institutions like this in Hong Kong and Singapore, where you can learn the art of cooking. And that's a really valuable thing to know how to do, to prepare an excellent meal. Not to mention just being a short order chef, that's great too. So that's probably worth doing for a couple or 3 months to gain expertise in building, and then a couple, 3 months expertise in cooking. Then like Tom Dyson, our friend, who has been living on the road for years with his family. And the next thing they're going to do is go to Israel, where the family are going to take Krav Maga for
Yeah,
several months.
Mhm.
Great idea, fantastic idea. I mean, taking martial arts is a wonderful idea, but a lot of it is formalized dance steps. Krav Maga is, mixed martial arts where you get the nitty gritty quickly. Hey, that'd be worthwhile doing for a couple, 3 months. And you'd be in all these things, you'd be in different parts of the country or different parts of the world. And so there's a half a dozen things like that you might do to prepare yourself just for life in general for the next 50 or 100 years, however long. Listen, I know they don't have the yellow pages anymore. It's too bad because they were so convenient for this. But I just go through the yellow pages and look at all the different businesses that people have and see which of them might be of any interest to you. And perhaps try to apprentice yourself to some business that really gets your attention. I mean, there's all kinds of things to do, but try to plan this out. You got a rare opportunity when you're 18 and you're thinking in the right direction. So don't blow it. Don't waste the time, because there's stuff that you can do at 18 that it's much harder to do when you're 28 or 38, and you're not going to be able to do it when you're 48 or 58, frankly. I mean, the man's got to know his limitations. So that's my advice.
I think that's great advice. I love the idea of going to a place to learn a specific skill or to be around specific people. Like they can let serendipity still step in and lots of new opportunities will open to you. But if you just, if you end up doing the kind of digital nomad thing where, everyone goes to Chiang Mai and hangs out there, Chiang Mai is great, but and there's a lot of expats there and you're just hanging out. It's fine, but you're not actually growing. You'll often find that have a nicer lifestyle, letting the clock run out essentially, instead of using that time to really build some identity capital. And I mean, imagine yourself, if you 6 months from now, or from when you graduate from high school, 6 months from then, you've learned how to build a house at the Shelter Institute, whether you've gone there as a volunteer, and worked 2 cycles with them, and in order to have them pay for your tuition, just show up if the class is already full and just be a good student and they'll let you in, probably. Imagine do that, and then you go and as Doug said, learn how to be a chef, spend a couple months learning how to do something like that, and then you go and you learn Krav Maga. Imagine your story as you walk into a room, in Taiwan or in Argentina, 6 months after you've done all that. You're a wholly different person, way more interesting immediately.
Oh, so far ahead of the morons that have just sat in a classroom listening to corrupting lectures from know-nothings for a year. My God, this could be a great year. And it's just the first of several that you've got to do this type of thing before you, listen, great opportunity. Do it. Don't blow it.
Have a plan.
You're absolutely right.
That's great advice. Great advice, Doug. Okay. What do you think of paleo conservatives?
Well, that's interesting. Our friend Lou Rockwell is a well-known paleo conservative.
Oh.
I'm all for them. I think they're great. Paleo conservatives that's really another name. I think maybe I'm missing a distinction here because I'm an anarcho-capitalist, not a paleo conservative. I'm very sympathetic to paleo-conservatives. I like them. They're really classical liberals, is what they are. They're not anarchists. Generally, they're not anarchists. They generally, believe in cultural traditions, which are nice. Often, a religious strain or twist through it. They're fine.
Okay. Next question, Doug, where can one purchase The International Man? I can't find a copy for less than $600 on the internet. I have my copy here, which I bought probably 15 years ago for about $300. So I guess these things are going up in value because they're hard to find.
Yeah, I don't have an answer to that question, actually. I don't have a stash of them. I wish I did, but well, I forgot the 6 Ps. Proper planning prevents piss poor performance.
Well, if you'd known, there'd be still so much demand for it so many decades later, you know.
Yeah, and where would I have stored them all these years? So, okay, that's interesting.
It is. So, Doug, have you read any books by James Allen, such as A Man Thinketh? If not, I highly recommend his books.
I haven't. Have you, Matt?
I have read As a Man Thinketh. Yes, I have. I mean,
What's it about? What's the story?
it's philosophy. It's basically it's philosophy. Yeah.
Okay, actually, I haven't. Uh, this is new to me, so perhaps I'll look it up. Would you recommend it?
Uh, I do remember enjoying it, but it was about 15 years ago or more when I read it. So I don't remember anything of
Hmm.
distinction from the books, to be honest. If I had your memory, I probably would remember something distinctive from the book, but I don't.
Well, I've made a note.
All right.
Okay, next thing is
Can you
what's the
discuss the logics of unrooting? Or logistics
unroot?
of unrooting?
That's a term that I haven't thought of before, but I presume it means to deplant yourself from wherever you're growing up. I mean, like most of the kids that I grew up with in Chicago and also a suburb of Washington, D.C., most of them stayed right where they were. They never uprooted. So I've taken a different path. I've become something of a rootless cosmopolitan, uh, which it's a Marxist term, incidentally, but Marxists hate rootless cosmopolitans. Um, yeah, I think uprooting is important because if you don't uproot, you're just going to be a plant staying where you are, greatly limiting your experiences and the people that you meet, the kind of people you meet. What you want to do once you uproot is try to set yourself on a hero's journey. What is the hero's journey? It's where a young man or a young woman, oh, it's harder for a young woman for all kinds of reasons. I mean, let's admit it, goes on a bold adventure to slay dragons and make his fortune. And after doing so, maybe then returns to where he uprooted himself from. So yeah, uprooting is great as long as you go on a hero's journey.
Like what we were describing for Josh earlier. That
Precisely.
hero's journey, and this is a concept solidified, I guess, in Joseph Campbell's work. You know, heroes.
Hmm.
Although it's in all of the great stories throughout history. The hero's journey is just part of it. It's kind of embedded in it, and we have a natural inclination to do it. But if you stay too rooted, you're definitely if you can't cut the ties a little bit and step away, you never experience it. But I agree. You can go back home a hero, but don't just stay home.
Yeah, that's exactly right. And of course, I guess this is one of the attractions of joining the military. Uh, Visit strange, exotic lands, meet wild and crazy people, and kill them. Uh, so a lot of people that go into the military and get into situations, um, they remember it for the rest of their lives. Um, well, I don't know if 2 years or however long you're in the military is quite enough for that type of thing, and it's too constrained an environment. But
It is, but
yeah,
it can be a catalyst though. And I mean, I joined the military for that. I didn't have a whole bunch of other options. Today, with my brain I have today, I would definitely not do it. I would definitely not join the military today. But my motivations then, with very few options, was definitely to challenge myself and to cut the roots of my hometown, really just to get out of there. I was giddy getting on the plane, going to basic training, leaving my hometown. I mean, I was excited to get the hell out of there. So that's why people do it.
Makes a lot of sense. I mean, yeah, it can. When you're of a certain age and in a certain set of conditions, hey, it can be one of the best things to do, actually, looking at available options. But yeah, seek out a hero's journey of some type and start it someplace as soon as possible.
Love it. Okay. Next question. They'd like to know what Doug thinks about the real estate market in areas with a big influx of migration like Arizona and Texas.
Well, that's interesting because Jim Kunstler had some, I thought, very good thoughts about that yesterday, talking about different parts of the country. And he didn't like the idea of Arizona because it doesn't have water. And, the arguments that Jim made, I thought were pretty good. But, real estate is all about location, location, location. And just before the show, we were talking about parts of the country that are nice where there are bargains, and other parts of the country, like Aspen, Colorado, which I'm quite happy to be pulling up stakes from, dumping the ranch, feeding the ducks while they're quacking, and going someplace that's more interesting and has more of the kind of people that I like hanging out with. No opinion really on places like Arizona and Texas. They're pretty big places. It's going to take a lot of immigration to really drive the prices up. And I think the economic situation is going to have much more of an effect on places like that than immigration. I mean, look, interest rates go back up to 10%. That ain't going to be good for the housing market.
That's right. Yeah. I mean, a lot of the housing increase in housing prices seems like it's just directly tied to the fact that interest rates have gone down. It's all about the monthly payment. And, as soon as the interest rates go up, we're screwed. I mean, people are screwed.
Yep. Not to mention the cost of heating and the fact that many local governments are bankrupt and real estate taxes are the most obvious form of revenue for the government. And, the government figures, hey, I'm going to survive. And if you peons have to pay more in real estate taxes, sorry. So it's not that simple.
Okay. Can you compare your standard of living at birth and the changes you felt throughout major monetary events and other economic events alike?
Yeah, well, the actual mainsprings of progress are science and technology, scientists figuring things out and technologists turning that knowledge into practical stuff, and capital accumulation, producing more than you consume, putting aside the difference, so that you've actually got an asset that can be deployed to do good things, hopefully using science and technology. So look, those are the two big things to remember. And since I was born, there's been a lot of both. So the standard of living has gone up a lot since then, but maybe not in all ways. I mean, because the general moral tenor of the society, the ethical state of society, I think, has deteriorated a lot. Just in my own experience, what were my neighbors like back then when I was growing up in Chicago? Well, pretty different than, I don't know about that neighborhood, but the neighbors are in places that I've been living in recent years. They seem to have different values, different desires, different thoughts. It's like the society, which has done so well and standard of living has improved so much, has in a lot of ways corrupted them. So I don't know if I'm answering the question or not. But hey, listen, when we go into World War III, that's going to change everything hugely. So, you know, we'll see what happens.
All right. Do you think, speaking of which, do you think China will invade Taiwan? And if so, how might that play out?
Well, it shouldn't make any difference to us here in the United States. We're on the other side of the world. The Chinese think Taiwan is a runaway, breakaway province. That's not what the Taiwanese think. Incidentally, the native Taiwanese, and I've been told this by people who were native Taiwanese, really resent all those Chinese from the Kuomintang coming over after Mao conquered China. So it's like, it's a complicated situation, but frankly, it's none of our business. So why the Seventh Fleet is floating around in waters off the coast of China, defending a country that, it's arguable who should really control that country. I like it independent personally, but so it's none of our business. It doesn't matter how it plays out. Don't stick your nose into their business. It will
Right.
only make it worse.
Okay, Doug, do you have any good line to use in response to being told you need to wear a mask?
Yeah, on the one hand, I don't like confrontation. I mean, because confrontation can get out of control in all kinds of ways, and it often doesn't end well. Um, and I don't like wearing a mask. I really resist it for all kinds of reasons. But frankly, what good does it do to argue with the kind of nincompoop that would say something like, "Sir, I'm going to need you to wear a mask." If it's the rule of the shop or whatever you're in, hey, it's the shop owner's shop. You got to play by his rules. It's his property. Okay. But if it's not a law that, they feel like they have to enforce, and if it's not an official rule, I just, come up with some appropriate quip. But it's a real problem, part of the world we live in, huh?
Yeah, I mean, and I'm conflicted by a lot of it because if you're in a business that is, the business gets all this pressure from the state, from the health department to enforce these rules, and they're trying to survive. Now, some of the employees, obviously, as we told you about, experience that some friends and I had at an REI not long ago, where obviously it's like these people are out of control, the staff, but still, I think it's just, I don't like the confrontation doesn't gain anything by doing anything with it. But when I was in Medellin, Colombia over Christmas, they have a mandate where you have to wear masks in public walking on the streets. And, they have some people there that are, to enforce it. And I ignored the rules, and, like being an outsider, I guess nobody called me on it, but you'd see all the locals were definitely wearing them. But if someone would have confronted me on it, I would have played dumb, like I didn't understand them, and just kept walking. But ultimately, to avoid any escalation, I probably would have just done it, because what difference I feel like I'm not going to change anything by doing it. I'm not going to change their mind.
Yeah, engaging in a discussion with the kind of idiot who would say something like that is really pointless. So it's like talking to your dog. So but that can be pleasant. Talking.
Roscoe's a good boy. Come on. All right. Let's see. How would a society flip the altruist morality to a selfish morality? Can it still be done? Will education become entrepreneurs teaching entrepreneurs in real world experiences rather than institutionalization? Two separate questions.
Yeah, I think the situation is hopeless, quite frankly. Resistance is futile. It really is. I mean, the bad guys have won. I mean, that's what, decades of indoctrination and in schools today. You know, everybody really believes the wrong things today. So, you know, you can point out things that are righteous for your own amusement, but it's mostly for your own amusement. You know, It's- that's the way I see it. Not going to convince anybody, change anybody's minds. Just doesn't work that way. I mean, look, even Socrates uh, used the best of all possible methods to, you know, to influence people. Basically, all he did was ask questions. Didn't give lectures to people. It wasn't self-righteous. Just ask people questions, you know, so they could figure that. And that didn't change anything. So I
Well, they
guess you just have
it,
to, you know, I
it,
don't know.
it
I don't know what the answer is.
it changed his life because they killed him for it. So it did do that.
It did do that. That's right. So, well, further proof that we live on a prison planet.
Yes. Yes. Okay. Let's see. I'm guessing you don't believe in the concept of regret, but what is the biggest missed opportunity in your lifetime, whether it was a missed investment, event, hobby, or girl?
Well, look, like everybody else, up until at least 20 years ago, should have just put any spare money I had into Berkshire Hathaway and forgotten about it. That would have made things so easy. Or as you pointed out, Matt, just bought a whole bunch of Bitcoin 10 years ago or whatever and forgotten about it. And, you know, so there's constantly missed, listen, there's so many missed investments. You know, you read this shameful copy that newsletter publishers send out showing how stocks have gone 100% up in a day, 1,000% in a week, 10,000%. Yeah, constantly. There's always another train leaving the station. So I don't worry about that. You know, I'm worried about what I should be doing now. That's hard enough rather than crying over the spilled milk. And girls, um, frankly, uh, having fallen in love in the past, it was almost always a mistake. I mean, almost always a mistake. So if it almost always a mistake. So don't worry about missed
But
opportunity with
really
no,
enjoyable.
yeah, don't
Really,
worry about it.
but it was really enjoyable at times. You got to admit.
Yeah, it was very enjoyable. But I'm just glad that so many women that I've known, uh, it basically didn't go anywhere, and it shouldn't have. And I'm glad it didn't. It was fun, okay? And you try not to, you know, leave any damaged psyches in your wake. Don't like to do that.
Mhm.
But so no regrets there, frankly. Uh, you know, I'm pretty happily married now, so that's fine. And what else?
Said events or hobbies, just missed opportunities.
Yeah, well, hobbies. I mean, I was big in scuba diving for many years. Went off on a 3-month treasure hunting expedition, which was a financial disaster, but I'm glad I did it. Uh, Hobbies. You know, hobbies are indulgences, quite frankly. I mean, my major hobby, I mean, like polo. I was in that for how long? Played polo for 15 years or something like that. And it was like running a small business that hemorrhaged money. So
Not so
I'm glad I did it.
not, not small enough of a business though, right? In terms of its hemorrhaging money.
Yeah, exactly. It was like a medium-sized business that hemorrhaged money. So I'm glad I did it. But hobbies are indulgences. My hobby for my on and off hobby for many years, of course, has been going to shithole countries, preferably ex-military dictatorships or people's republics, and sitting down with the man that runs the country. That's been a worthwhile hobby, not financially, but psychically. And what's the last thing?
Just so I said events. Uh,
Events. Well, yeah, I'm sorry I missed some. Like, I'm glad I went to Burning Man, I think 10 years ago, just to have been there. And
I didn't know you did that 10 years ago. Ah,
huh?
I did not know that you did that 10 years ago.
I did, and yeah, there was a friend of mine in Aspen who actually he was a hippie, a few years older than I am, uh, and he founded a New York Stock Exchange technology corporation. He was a real rich guy, Nick DeWolf, and so he had a camp. You have these camps around the playa, and he had the caveman camp. So I joined Nick's camp, and that was fun. I think everybody ought to go to Burning Man, but at this point, it's like everything else. It's once something becomes old and well known, and all kinds of people go there because they heard about it. It's different from the old days, kind of.
They canceled
So
it last year too. It was canceled last year
it was. Oh, oh,
because of COVID.
oh. Well, who knows? Maybe this year and the year after, and then the momentum's broken. I don't know. It's
Yeah.
like who was it that said this? That everything starts out as a as a sincere movement to improve things, and then it evolves into a business, and it eventually winds up as a scam. So that's probably the process of Burning Man. I'm sorry I missed what was that thing in New York in 1967? It was huge, where they had like 100,000 hippies in the rain listening to rock and roll music. It was called.
Oh, oh gosh. Um,
Ah, it was a huge deal.
I can't believe I can't think of this. The
Either.
Hendrix was there, and yeah,
Yeah, I mean, that would have been fun at the time. If it happened again today, would I want to spend 3 days, you know, in the rain and the mud with people that I today I wouldn't like? No. So there's
no.
time and a place for everything. I can't think of too many events.
Okay, well that's good.
Sorry, I missed the collapse of the Soviet Union. I should have gone over there at that time. My wife went over there. I couldn't at that time. I was involved in a proxy battle on a public company that was a disaster. Another story we're not worth talking about. So I said, look, why don't you go over there and try to buy a bunch of artwork? Artwork's probably really cheap in the ex-Soviet Union now. So she did. She bought some. But, you got to, actually make it, get into the thing. She didn't have time to do that. So we bought a couple interesting pieces. But now I can't think of other things. I mean, that would have been a great time to get into like the arms business, like that movie with Nicolas Cage,
Lord of
Lord
War.
of War.
Yeah, that was a great movie. Very entertaining. Well,
It
and
was.
that guy was a real person, right? And he ended up getting arrested and was in a Bangkok prison, a Thailand prison for a long time, right? What's his name?
Stuff like that happens, right? Yeah. Well, I mean, it's like, during the 70s, I almost got in, had plans on getting into the drug business. I mean, back when, the penalties weren't severe, there wasn't all that much. It was a different time, okay? Um, Never did it, come to a fork in the road, you take it. So never did that, but no regrets.
All right, good. What does Doug think about the future? Maybe 30 or 50 years from now. Wait, what does Doug think people of the future, maybe 30 or 50 years from now, might look back at today and be surprised at what we still do now?
Well, question is, yeah, see, the thing is, I don't think human nature changes very much. Um, and this is the interesting thing about reading history. It's that you find that throughout history, people have, always had these thoughts about, what's noble and what's right and things that you should do with and that are good with other people, blah, 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 the whole thing. We've talked about a lot of this. But, when push comes to shove, one group of chimpanzees will absolutely slaughter another group. And that's been going on since day one, and it's still going on. I mean, we're just, as Americans in particular, North Americans or Europeans, we tend to think that, yeah, we've risen to a higher level where everything is sweetness and light. But I think the social veneer, the mask of sanity, could fall down, and we could find that things get really nasty if various things happen in the economy, in the society, internationally. So I don't know. I'm not going to judge the next 50 years by the last 50 years, which have been pretty good, all things considered. Don't know.
Okay. Is Doug going to have the COVID vaccine or will he dodge it? If so, how?
Yeah, I keep asking myself that question because if you want to travel internationally, you've got to have this ridiculous test, which is very inconvenient and costs anywhere in between $100 and $150 before you get on the plane. And I don't know, because I'm convinced that not only is the whole COVID thing basically a scam, but the vaccine or vaccines, there are a number of them. Do they all work because they're different? I don't know. But there are clearly dangers when you inject anything in your body. So I don't know what I'm going to do, quite frankly. I'm going to have to travel. If you have to take a vaccine, I mean, can I bribe somebody? Well, certainly be willing to do that. Nothing wrong with bribery. I don't, listen, this is a real problem. I wish I had an answer, but I don't know what it is at this point.
Okay. Can Doug speak about the philosophy and history of money lending and usury? Is it necessary for a functioning society?
Well, this term usury is kind of a tip-off buzzword. No, there's nothing wrong with money lending, and usury is just an arbitrary term for interest rates that are too high. I mean, hey, you know what? If the interest rate is too high, if it's usury, don't borrow. How about that? But you're always going to have lending. Why? Because some people are prudent and they put aside capital. And in order to deploy the capital, one way is to have an equity business, and the other way is to help other people, and you lend it to them. Okay, so that's kind of a trick question. Usury doesn't exist, in my opinion. And if you pay usurious loans, hey, that's the market rate. Get somebody to lend you the money at a cheaper rate.
Or don't borrow it?
Or don't borrow it. Yeah. So this is kind of a ridiculous biblical concept that has all kinds of negative moral implications. So read some economics books. Be very helpful before you ask a question like that.
Okay. Let's see. I think we already covered this one about skills before you travel. That one's also about the vaccine passport, which you already covered. So let's see.
Yeah, we're all going to have to be chipped eventually if you want to get on a plane or go anywhere. That's just what they're going to require. And all these chimpanzees driven by fear will think, hey, that's a good idea. And we can put other stuff in the chip. Hey, this is a great idea. It'd be like dogs. No, it's coming. Yeah. Anyway.
It is coming. And I think, one of the things I think people are, we have this idea with travel, and as I'm lucky that I did get a lot of time to travel, like 15 years of really good travel in. But I think that people are going to start to explore the world in a smaller way. They could still be, there's still lots of interesting things around you, and I think one of the things about extensive travel actually is that in the industry of travel is that it's almost like going to a theme park, most travel. It's not actually risky. It's not that authentic, or it's like going to Disney World in a way, I guess, where you just,
Yeah.
I'm going to Epcot Center. So yeah, I saw the world. I went to the Starbucks in Shanghai. I went to the Starbucks in Hong Kong. I went to the Starbucks in, there isn't one in Buenos Aires, at least there might be now, but but like that kind of thing. I collect my cups from all the Starbucks in different places. And I just think
Yeah.
that kind of travel is actually about the worst form of travel you could have anyway. And if a lot of that gets cut out of the mix, I think that's probably a good thing, and it might force people to look for more authentic experiences where they can find them.
Good point. And it's always a good idea to look at the bright side. So that is a bright side, frankly.
All right, so let's see. We recently featured Kolya Spori, who has a somewhat commonly held view among libertarian types on social media. And that is the regulation that's come out recently is a UN phenomenon, where the whole world, but a few rogue nations agree to deprive the population of as much freedom as possible. It's a common conclusion in the West that I have not found in several countries in Asia, despite that they also have some virus regulation. I believe this could be because of the hawk dove principle, which says that among honest individuals, a cheater outcompetes his peers. In other words, I expect certain countries will cheat on other UN countries by making their place livable. They will attract all the human resources as a consequence. What do you think about that idea?
I hope that's right, because in the next couple of novels uh, that John Hunt and I are writing, uh, Charles Knight goes back to Gondwana and turns it from a shithole into Hong Kong on steroids. So I think that's possible as the world's countries break up in the future, which I think they're going to do. So, yeah, anything's possible. Got these people that are working to make it one world, and then other people that are looking to have, like myself, for instance, have like 8 billion separate little countries. So take your choice.
All right. How would you trade higher interest rates or a bond market sell off?
Well, the most effective way to do it is to open up a commodities account. And that's kind of hard to do these days, which is kind of strange because anybody can open up a Robinhood account with no qualifications at all. But commodity accounts, because it's so volatile, you've got to have a lot of capital before you can trade commodities. You got to talk at least $50,000. And of course, you can buy commodity options on bonds to go short or long, puts, calls, play that a number of different ways. And yes, I think interest rates are going to keep going higher and higher. I think we've passed the turning point. But, and of course, I guess they have ETFs that are short bonds or even triple short bonds. Yeah, you can do all those things. But look, if you got to ask the question, you don't want to play that game, really.
Great point. Not sure how much you want to go into this, but what's Doug's take on the Clinton Foundation? I heard him mention he had a friend working for them or with them, I think you said. Is it any good, or do they just use it as a proxy to do bad stuff? They've been involved in a few scandals, and as with all people in power, I assume it's just the tip of the iceberg.
Yeah, I think so. I think look, it's a scam. Listen, I've considered setting up a charitable foundation myself. I mean, it's a great way to cut your tax bill and do all kinds of, so it's a great scam in lots of ways to be an NGO, and it's worth looking into. And my friend wasn't, see, this is funny how when you say something, people hear something just a little bit different and it changes things. So my friend didn't work for them, God forbid, but she was very familiar with them because she worked in the same country with them, Haiti, and so knew about it. This is funny how confusing questions can get. This is one of my favorite jokes that my friend Harry Brown, I got from him. Harry said, guy came up to me and said, hey, aren't you the guy that made $1 million buying silver in London? And Harry said, well, kind of. Uh, it wasn't silver, it was gold. And it wasn't London, it was Zurich. And it wasn't $1,000,000, it was only $100,000. And it wasn't me, it was my brother. And he didn't make it, he lost it. So it's funny how, you know, the kids gave a telephone. So anyway, what was the subject?
The Clinton Foundation.
The Clinton Foundation. Yeah, it's a scam. It's a ridiculous scam with, makes it real easy to do political payoffs and God knows whatnot. It's criminal. But there are thousands and thousands of these NGOs around the world. So maybe we ought to set one up and give it a really official sounding name and print, plasticine documents, and we can do stuff like that and get some respect when we go to various countries.
Right, we should do it because it is definitely the way that the super rich protect their wealth and protect and accumulate more wealth. It is quite a scam.
Yeah.
Okay, let's see. Sorry, lost my place here. What could possibly happen to pro sports? The NHL cannot possibly be making money with no fans in the stands.
Well, I hope they dry up and blow away because, it's fun to watch, super athletes do magical things on the field. I mean, it's fun to watch, but I could care less which gladiator works for which team. I mean, why people root for teams even is kind of beyond me. I mean, these guys are just hired. It's crazy the enthusiasm people have for that. Anyway, sports are basically to play, not to watch. I think mostly.
I think so too, and it is weird. I've always found it disturbing that you have adults, full-grown adult men with children, basically wearing the jersey of some 20-year-old college kid who's playing, for some college team that they didn't even go to, but they, have been obsessed with for 25 years, and keep track of all like the movements of the workouts and the diets of these kids. It's weird. It's perverse. It seems to be. With children.
I mean, grossly overpaid and corrupt kids that can't do that, have nothing to speak for them except having been lucky to have been born with lots of fast twitch muscles or whatever. It's crazy, and it's up until it was only 50 years ago. Professional athletes, didn't make all that much money, quite frankly. I mean, you made a good wage, but it was no big deal.
It was like being a congressman.
Yeah, kind of. I mean, I guess I could watch a sport like rollerball if they come up with it, because that's not something that I want to play myself, but
Oh, sorry, Doug, we froze up there for a second, but yeah, we're talking about the sports.
the last thing I said was, I hope most of these professional sports dry up and blow away.
I do too. I also think it's a way for people to feel like they're winning and they have a chance in life without ever doing anything. Like their team won that season. We're holding out hope for next season. Just like as an excuse to. It's like in a way. It's like cute.
Yeah, it is. It's like nationalism on a small scale. Like you want to belong to something that's winning, even though you have absolutely nothing to do with it, sitting on your butt, eating wings while you're watching the game. It's insane. It's degraded and degrading, in my opinion.
I agree. Okay, so since Janet Yellen is talking about doing something about Bitcoin, how likely does Doug think it will be that they will start doing what they did with gold and price controls? I guess they
Well,
wanted gold ownership, but
yeah, well, government never controls itself. It only controls its subjects. So yeah, they'll probably try to do something. I mean, to what degree they succeed, they won't succeed any better than governments for many, many years tried to control gold and its price. Didn't work. It'll even be harder with Bitcoin than it was with gold, I think. So don't worry about it. Yeah, they'll do something stupid. That's what they do for a living.
yeah, they're definitely going to make attempts to regulate it, but at least in the initial stages, that regulation will probably be bullish for the price because it allows institutions and other regulated bodies to more actively participate. That's my opinion.
Yeah, I just wish I knew how high Bitcoin was going to go. I hope we're incredibly surprised on the upside.
We could be. Yeah, it's been interesting so far. Let's see. Last question, because our connection is starting to waver. So I want to wrap up with this. What do you expect the next release date on the next series, the next book in this Charles Nate series? When do you think that'll next one will be released?
Oh, I'd say a year from now. I'm trying to be realistic,
Okay. All right.
but it's going to be good. That's going to be terrorist. So Charles Knight is going to ramp things up to the next level, and don't fall behind. You want to start with speculator and move to drug lord and then on up to assassin, because by the time we get to warlord and beyond, you're going to get lost. So
Yeah, and they're all available on Amazon and other places, and there are audiobook versions of these as well. So I know that people were waiting for that to come out on Assassin to come out in audiobook, and it is out. It has been out for about a month, so I encourage people to pick it up.
I appreciate the question, and neither Matt nor I planted that question. So thank you very much.
It's totally legit. Totally legit. Okay, well, we'll leave it there, Doug. Thank you very much. I hope you have a fantastic weekend.
Thanks, Matt. Same to you.